Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. It is Friday, September 22nd. My name is Daniel Dopp, joined by Stephania Bell and Field Yates. Today's show is presented by Geico. Switch to Geico, see all the ways that you can save. We've got a quick Thursday night preview. A recap we are going to get through. We have got so many things about our week 3 preview that we are going to get into. But first and foremost, really quickly, Stephania. Rosie was very excited that on her birthday yesterday, she got to celebrate a 49ers win on your behalf. The 49ers look pretty good.
I felt like it was a gift for both of us. I gave it to her, and I also earned that victory.
Is she a 49ers fan? And I just found this out right now.
She is not. She's a Lions fan. But
I was going to say.
She will vicariously live through Stephania because Stephania is her favorite one on the show.
Oh, I do that when Stephania goes to the Amalfi Coast. Like, I've never been there, but I've geotagged it on Instagram, so I've practically been there.
If only I could teleport myself there right now.
Right now. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to teleport ourselves to the injury report, Stephania, because you do so many things for all of us in fantasy, making sure that we're set up for our week 3 lineup. So let's dive right into it. A lot of injuries to get to. Austin Eckler has been dealing with an ankle injury. We did not see him last week. Fantasy managers had to deal with Joshua Kelly instead. Will we see Austin Eckler here in week 3?
It still remains a mystery, Daniel, because he has not practiced yet this week. And Brandon Staley's still saying that there's no timeline. And let's be honest, this does not mean that he's worried necessarily that he's going to be out some lengthy amount of time. It means he really doesn't know. Austin Eckler's so good at managing himself and really indicating when he'll be out there. He has been out in a shorts and T-shirt watching practice, so obviously getting the mental reps, which you would assume is also preparation. But I will say this, they play the Vikings, a poor rush defense. If he's not out there today, Friday, obviously we're recording this in the morning, then I'd be concerned about his status. By the way, Austin Eckler, fantasy-friendly Austin Eckler, said in his weekly show, I get it that my fantasy fans want me back out there. I have myself on my fantasy team, so trust me, I'm trying to get back out there. He's trying, might be another week.
First of all, what a freaking flex. Yeah, I've got myself on my own fantasy team, so I'm probably in first place. Well, maybe not after last week. I will reserve my thoughts on Joshua Kelly's outlook until Mike Clay joins the show because we have a board bet to make.
Oh, yes, we do. All right, let's dive in on Derrick Henry then. Stephanio's dealing with a toe injury, but it also felt like this was just sort of like rest for the veteran.
Yeah, this is why you want to look closely at the injury report. So Derrick Henry listed as limited on Wednesday because of his toe, but listed on Thursday as it did not practice because of veteran rest. Now, Derrick Henry's been known to get days off, and we know teams will do this when they work someone a lot. They get that veteran day off during the week. So I think this is more a combination of those two things. Friday practice important. Titans practice at 11:25 a.m. Central Time, obviously after we're recording this podcast. By the way, he increased his work in week 2, had 25 carries compared to 15 in week 1. So increased volume, veteran guy, probably some soreness. You know, there's a reason that he's on the injury report, but it doesn't sound like it's threatening it.
I might be making this up, but I feel like there's an NBA team who uses the classification old for a player when he misses a practice or a game.
Do that? I feel like that's
it does feel like a very Greg Popovich thing. Yeah. The Titans are the NFL equivalent of that. DeAndre Hopkins missing practice all of last week, still plays. Derrick Henry's going to get a veteran rest day, like probably once a week. Wouldn't surprise me for the entire season. Like, just get used to this. You know why? Who are they coached by? Mike Vrabel, a player who played in the league for a ton of time, was a master of staying on the field, knew how to take care of his body. Not concerned, obviously, for Derrick Henry. Other than that, I want the efficiency to go up. And the efficiency has not been as Derrick Henry so far this season as it has been in the past, but still a top 6 running back this week.
All right, Stephania, let's talk about a wide receiver near and dear to my heart. Will I see Amon-Ra St. Brown out there in week 3, or do I need to make other plans?
I think, look, here's what's encouraging. When a player's practice volume goes up, even though they're dealing with a recently acquired injury. And if you go back to the game, we saw Amon-Ra St. Brown come out. The Lions reported it as cramping, but we all saw him being tended to on the sideline. Dan Campbell acknowledged early in the week it was a toe injury, and he did not practice on Wednesday, but he was out there doing individual drills on Thursday. So I would say if the practice volume goes up on Friday, there's a good shot that we see him.
I would love to see Amon-Ra St. Brown out there. If not, Joshua Reynolds can become a guy that you could look at in that Lions receiving corps.
Yeah, he certainly has had quite a start to the season. He himself is banged up, is Josh Reynolds. Even if Amon-Ra does play, I think Reynolds is already on the the deeper league radar because he has taken over that Lions wide receiver 2 job. I am not emotionally prepared for the possibility of Amon-Ra not being on the field on Sunday against the Falcons. So I am here to declare he's going to play on Sunday.
Oh, I hope
I don't actually know that. I'm just declaring it.
I definitively want that to happen, Field. So I'm going to hope that we can just will this into existence as you've done other things.
I mean, here's the cool thing about today's media, right? Is that like in the world we live in, and check this out, like when you predict something and then it comes true, you go remind everybody about how you predicted it was true.
Yes.
Then when you predict something, you just move on to the next tape.
Move on.
That's how it works in today's world. Just receipts do not exist unless they are receipts that make you look good. So yes, Amon-Ra is going to play on Sunday unless he doesn't, but he's going to play.
Yeah, play well.
It's going to be off the charts.
Mike Clay is hoping to cash his Christian Watson receipt here fairly soon. Has not seen him through the first 2 weeks of the season, Stephania. Are we going to see Christian Watson here in week 3?
I don't know. We'll see if Mike gets to cash in on those receipts. Obviously, Christian Watson has not played yet this year because of a hamstring injury. This is now going around on the Packers. He did come back to practice on Friday. Christian Watson did. So if you look at what his practice log was, it was Friday and then Wednesday. Then he was held out on Thursday. So people were wondering, is this a setback? But the Packers clarified, Matt LaFleur did, that this was a planned rest day. And you'll see this intermittently with these soft tissue injuries where they increase a player's volume of work, then back them down a little bit. It's all part of a structured plan to see how they respond. So Friday practice, again, a big deal for informing us about Christian Watson's status. As far as Aaron Jones, his teammate, also dealing with a hamstring injury, he did not play in week 2 after injuring his hamstring on a 35-yard catch and score. He was a non-practice on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. That was his first practice since the injury. So I take that as an encouraging sign that he was out there, but one partial practice is still too much to hang your hat on. Again, Friday, a big deal for him.
So do you feel like that applies to both Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, one partial practice up to this point? Or do you feel like Christian Watson's a different category because said this is a designed day off on Thursday?
Different category, and it's a great question because you think, you're dealing with the same injury. But if you look at Christian Watson, someone who's had multiple hamstring injuries in his past, someone who came into the season, came into week 1 dealing with a hamstring injury and plays a part of wide receiver. So stretch the field, different kind of player than Aaron Jones, and managing it a little bit differently.
So just in an effort to make this all about me, you're telling me that my team with Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Brandon Ayuk, and Jacoby Myers, who sounds like he'll be back this week, but that team could be in for us. I'm playing Mike Clay this week in that league.
That's tough.
Well, then I wish them all to be healthy for you.
Why, thank you. Yeah, I will squash Mike like a grape later.
I'll tell you what, if Christian Watson doesn't go field really quickly, I guess Jaden Reed is the wide receiver that you want there.
I mean, here's the crazy part is that like you've had back-to-back weeks with no Christian Watson. You've also had back-to-back weeks in which a Packers wide receiver has gotten incredibly lucky. Jordan Love has completed 29 passes this year. Over 20% of those have gone for touchdowns.
That's good.
Imagine that. Like, just take how many completions you expect Patrick Mahomes to have by the end of the season. Probably around 450 or 500. Whatever that number is, a lot. Can you imagine if he threw 80 touchdowns, which might happen with him one day, but just some perspective on how ridiculously efficient this Packers offense has been. So if Watson is out, I don't feel particularly strong about any Packers receiver. If Aaron Jones is out, I feel fine about A.J. Dillon. The volume should be very good, but A.J. Dillon has not smashed in this spot during the games in which Aaron Jones has missed. He's a totally playable low-end RB2, but this is not Aaron Jones sits out, then A.J. Dillon immediately, in my eyes, carries top 8 or 9 running back value.
Right. I'm with you on that one.
Which obviously the inverse. If A.J. Dillon were out and Aaron Jones were available, you'd be saying to yourself, this could be top 6, 7 running back that week. No problem.
Stephania, looking at DK Metcalf, got his ribs banged up last week against the Lions. Are we in a spot where we think we're going to be able to have him this week, though?
I think so. I think, again, I feel like a broken record. Friday's a big day, but it is, especially the further you get into the season, this is how they manage players, so it's off early in the week. But we had a hint here from Pete Carroll that he said it was going to be, quote, a couple days of recovery likely for DK Metcalf. Remember, he left in the first half, but he came back and he finished out the game. He played more than 80% of the offensive snaps, so I think that's a very good sign going into this week. They probably wanted to let him rest, just as Pete Carroll said, and if he's back on Friday, then I think you can plan on having him in your lineup.
I would just say this. I feel like the Seahawks, and this is totally anecdotal, are the kings of mispractice Wednesday, Thursday, practice even in a limited capacity on Friday, and the expectation the entire time is to play.
I mean,
that's Stephania's analysis. That's my analysis on it. So I'm expecting DK Metcalf to be available on Sunday as well, and he could not practice. He's DK Metcalf. So there's my extremely breathtaking, can't find it anywhere else analysis. If DK Metcalf plays, despite the relatively slow start to the season in terms of catch production, you're playing him on Sunday against the Panthers. The Panthers in a tough time right now, offensively at least.
Yeah, dealing with some things.
And defensively missing some coverage guys. So
yeah, and they were already thin there beyond J.C. Horn. So yes, certainly a banged up Panthers team that's going through it right now.
Stephania, Devonta Smith also has been banged up, dealing with not only a hamstring but a thigh injury. Are we going to see him in our fantasy lineups in week 3?
So the Eagles play on Monday night.
Yeah.
And so this is a tough one to call right now because the only practice report you have is Thursday. In fact, people weren't really aware that Devonta Smith was dealing with this because he had a beautiful performance last week. But listed on the injury report with both hamstring and thigh injuries, which, by the way, I found interesting because sometimes it'll just say thigh and teams are referring to the hamstring, but sometimes thigh means quad. The fact they said hamstring and thigh makes me think it's a hamstring and a quad and maybe just some soreness, but elite wide receiver who counts on speed, it can't be too serious or he's not going to be able to go. I think the fact he was limited in the very first practice report, that's much better than it did not participate. So encouraging, but stay tuned.
I thought his spirits yesterday, he jumped in during the A.J. Brown interview with the media yesterday. That to me seemed like a player that's expecting to play on Monday night. So my concern right now in Devonta Smith, fairly low.
Okay.
All right.
If I'm wrong, I'll just change my take.
I'm just laughing.
But my early Thursday take
limited practice and really good mood and jumped in an interview.
Yes.
It's
scientific,
money in the bank.
Yes, money in the bank. That's right.
Clearly.
All right, Stephania, you can follow her at Stephania_ESPN for all of the injury updates that you need. Stephania, so great to have you here.
Thank you, my friends.
All right, Field, we are going to pay some bills. Go ahead and give us our friends over at Geico.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance?
Of course I would.
And of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app. Available 24-hour roadside assistance and more. And Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
Do you guys smell that?
Oh, yeah, I do.
That's the scent of fresh turf and freshly cracked Dr. Pepper, which can only mean one thing. It is college football season.
Not going to lie. I thought you were referring to Mike Clay's musk.
I thought for sure when he walked in, that's what I was talking about, too. So block off your Saturdays and swipe a sweet Dr. Pepper from the mini fridge because there's a new season of high kicks, long throws, and Fansville commercial breaks to carry you all the way to the West Coast games in Illinois. That's right. The fans are back. And this year, things are heating up. We're talking more hot takes, more heartbreak, more layers of face paint. Get ready to drink in all the drama this season with the help of the most delicious football tradition there is, DP Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. All right, back on Fantasy Focus here. My name is Daniel Dopp with Mike Clay now and Field Yates. And guys,
hey, yo, what's up, TV?
We're going to do a quick Thursday night preview here because the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, here's the great news. Here's my preview for Thursday Night Football because you said we're going to do a Thursday night preview.
I did it again. It's
Niners win 30-12. I've got, how about this? Ronnie Bell, anytime touchdown. Bet the mortgage on it.
Wow.
Minus
18. That's a wide line.
That's a wide line.
Yeah. What do you guys think for the preview?
I think you're way off. I think the Giants pull off the upset. I don't think Ronnie Bell even plays. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, spoiler alert, Mike.
Saquon Barkley, 3 touchdowns?
I didn't watch the game last night.
Okay. Do you watch any games?
Oh, no. I was watching
Just look at the box
Murder
scores.
She Wrote. Murder She Wrote's on late at night.
49ers crushed the Giants. 30-12, guys. Brock
This
Purdy
is so
looked
predictable,
fantastic.
though, right? I mean,
it was. The Giants looked really bad here, Field.
No, I mean, I actually thought they were fine through the first half. 17-6 at halftime. They were fine.
Kind of hanging in
there.
there.
Kind of hanging in. They were okay. They were so undermanned. The offensive line, major injury. Saquon Barkley, he's out. Defensively, they have been a mess so far this season. A team that we thought, not just because of pretty decent personnel, but obviously a great coordinator in Wink Martindale, would be good so far this season. They have been the opposite of good. So the 49ers cruise. They have very much the look of a championship team. Let's talk takeaways, though, from this game. The 49ers, without Brandon Ayuk, kind of became what I think people were hoping for from all their 49ers that started last night. Christian McCaffrey did his thing. Deebo Samuel, I feel like, is on the revenge tour right now.
Yeah, he was. The first drive, he had 5 targets,
Yeah.
and he had 1
Absurd.
catch. I was super frustrated watching that.
Brock
In
Purdy
fact,
was-
he came out slow. He definitely came out slow to end up 25 of 37 for 310 and 2 touchdowns. It was an impressive turnaround, but it was a slow start, and then he really got it rolling. It was good to see all of those touches manufactured for Deebo Samuel, but also not really shocking, right? They have the 4 guys that we know they're going to funnel touches to. One of them was out, then you only had to funnel 3.
Yep.
And we've seen this from Kyle Shanahan before, from guys even like Richie James. If other guys were out, they pick a guy and they find the matchup and they give him a ton of volume. So nice game for Deebo. Looks like the bounce back season is underway.
Yeah, man. And looking at
You don't
this,
feel great about that, do you? You don't like that. Remember
fine
our
with it.
preseason board bet?
It's a long season. Here's what I have to say about that. It's a long season. I do think, though, everything that you just said, Mike, is totally true. When one of these guys misses, it's a smaller target
It's a
tree, so everybody
consolidated effort.
Yeah, you get more. This is part of what we talked about, Field. We had some panicked questions about, can I start George Kittle this week? And this is what happens. If you don't start George Kittle because you want to get cute and try and play the matchup game, you're going to miss out on games like this.
I was watching the game last night with some buddies. We're on a league together, and one of them has George Kittle as his tight end. And so, like, before every snap, I would just Kittle time right here. Just watch this one. Kittle touchdown coming up.
I mean, he was right 7 times.
No. I kept saying Kittle touchdown. I don't care if they had like, first and 10 from their own 25. Kittle touchdown coming right now. So, 7 targets or seven catches for 90 yards for George Kittle. And maybe it's as simple as Brandon Ayuk not being available. I also think there's enough of a sample size to suggest that this could be that this 49ers offense for players not named Christian McCaffrey, and I believe Deebo Samuel is going to be a bit unpredictable most weeks. You could have smash weeks for George Kittle when Brandon Ayuk is on the field. You also might have dud weeks for George Kittle when Brandon Ayuk is not on the field.
But here's the thing with tight end, there's like 5 guys, including Kittle, who you're like, yeah, I'll just throw him in there every week. And then after that, there's like 25 guys who are all the same.
Totally.
Kittle feels like he's going to be boom bust. I agree.
Yep.
And he feels like a safe play.
Yeah.
He just feels like a safe tight end. So you just have to keep rolling him out there. And you can almost say that about Darren Waller too. And he has 2 duds in 3 games.
Just gonna say that.
Yeah,
He has 2 duds in 3 games, and it's still like he's running the routes. He's still their number 1 target. It's like it's been a poor start, but with the state of the position, you just got to keep rolling him out there. He did have a good week too.
I totally agree with Mike here, Field, and I want to know if you disagree, because the conversation we had yesterday with George Kittle is this is part of what you get when you draft him. You know that up and down nature, and you got to ride it. You can't try and pick your weeks. Darren Waller's the same thing for me. That floor is a floor that sometimes is not going to be what you want, but the difference between him and tight end 15 is that ceiling game when you get it is going to be astronomically bigger, and his volume is so much more in this offense.
I have an idea. I might commission this. There's an artist out there that wants to do this. Maybe the person that used to draw Jimmy G every day. It's just a list. It's not actually a painting. A list of all the tight ends that you just have to start every week because... Right, like even if they don't have great, I'm not talking about
There's
Kelsey, I'm not talking about Mark Andrews. I know, but every week you have to live with the good and the bad. We need that list at some point here in the studio.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, 15 targets over the last 2 weeks. We're still firing him up.
All right, here on Fantasy Focus Football, Field Yates, Mike Clay, and Daniel Dopp doing our Week 3 preview, guys. And last week, Jerome Ford came out and looked fantastic, replacing Nick Chubb, unfortunately, after he got hurt, and we have been excited. Field, we went out and spent almost all of our fab to be able to get this guy.
Yeah, we did.
And then this week, he gets one of the toughest run defenses. So what I want to say is maybe temper expectations on Jerome Ford based on what you saw last week.
Right, like do not have buyer's remorse if on Monday morning you're like, wow, Jerome Ford was running back 32 for the week and I just spent $81 of my fab budget. Good reminder for those out there that aren't necessarily as accustomed to playing or have never played in a fab league before. Free agent acquisition budget. Rather than
that's what that stands for.
Hitting waivers. Well, no, there's some people that someone reached out to me and was like, not a bad idea to
say it.
Yes.
I thought it was like fantastic, apples and
awesome.
ants, Batman.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was.
Hashtag a comedy podcast.
Yeah, so that'd be top
nailed
3
it.
here. So anyways,
That's the best I could come up with on the fly. I got nothing.
what I was going to say is that, for those that maybe aren't as familiar with it, the way it works is you get $100 at the beginning of the season. You can spend it as much or as little as you want of it, and you can spend it as often or whenever you want. But you blind bid. So, if you bid 52 and you don't know that Mike's going to bid 55, Mike's going to win $55. Anyways, yes, Jerome Ford could have a little bit of a slow start here, but I still have him as an RB2 this week. One thing the Browns have made very clear throughout the past 4 or 5 days, Jerome Ford's the guy.
Yeah, he'll be the guy. A quick nugget on Tennessee, just for perspective, because he's going to be an interesting guy in DFS as well. In fact, I'm going to have a hard time not playing him at his price point this week. But Titans so far have allowed 16 fantasy points to running backs. That's fewest in the NFL. Also, last year, dominant in this department. Only one running back reached 20 fantasy points against them last year. Only 2 got to 16. That shows you how good they are in this department. On the other hand, though, because teams can't run them, they throw a lot. They allow a ton of fantasy production to receivers, the most last year, the third most this year. So guys like Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, very interesting this week.
Yeah, and that's part of the conversation here because of the fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because the Titans are difficult to run against, but we've seen some down weeks recently from Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore and David Njoku. We wanted a little bit more from this passing game, right, with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Is this a week that could be a fix-me game, you think, for this wide receiving or pass catcher?
Well, I think, but don't you think Watson's the important part here?
Yeah,
not the other players.
I do. We definitely need the volume. They need to commit to throwing the football, and maybe they will do that more with Nick Chubb out. Cooper actually coming off the injury last week had a pretty good game. Moore hasn't really had a big game yet, so Njoku's a big one too. He's off to a slow start.
Totally, but I legitimately wonder, for those that committed to Deshaun Watson as their starting quarterback coming into this season. He was quarterback 6 in week 1. You can live with that, obviously. He was bad last week. I wonder what the temperature is of those that are starting Watson week in, week out.
I'll tell you what. I have Watson and Brock Purdy on multiple teams, and I started Watson over him this week.
Okay.
Over Purdy,
Wow.
which I stand by. I mean, even like last night, Purdy had 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that wasn't a big fantasy day. He doesn't run. Like, he's averaging 14 points per game this
That was
year.
the second time in 8 starts he's been over 20 fantasy points, which
so I feel
guess a
fine
quarter
with
of
that.
your starts is fine. But
No, I mean, he's not.
you're looking for
Purdy,
floor.
Purdy's has not been a good fantasy quarterback. He's been a good regular quarterback, I
Yeah,
guess. But
yeah.
his points per game this year, even after last night, would be outside the top 20.
See,
So
yeah.
I feel like I'm getting more upside with Watson. He runs, and I like the matchup here, obviously,
Yes.
against the Titans. So that answers your question, right? I'm taking the temperature of me. I'm still leaning Watson, at least for this week.
Right, but I'll be curious, and Mike is one piece of the sample size here. I'll be curious if others who do have Watson, if he does not have a great week this week, feel like it's time to move forward with a different quarterback. Again, you have to have that different quarterback to move forward with. But if there is Jared Goff in a good spot, or if you had Anthony Richardson as a second quarterback, something to that effect, I'll be curious to see what the narrative is surrounding Deshaun Watson's fantasy value if he does not perform against a very suspect Tennessee secondary.
Yeah, I'm with you. Keep in mind, he did have a good week 1 fantasy-wise. He's
I know,
QB6,
I know.
He just looks worse than he's performing fantasy-wise. I mean, last week was bad fantasy.
It's bad, yeah.
But
It was
anyway,
bad.
well, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Not great. Let's talk about a quarterback that's looked fantastic then, because this is a lot more fun. Kirk Cousins is averaging 350 yards and 3 touchdowns per game through the first 2 games. Now he gets the Los Angeles Chargers, whose defense is bad the word, Mike Clay?
I think you could say that.
Atrocious?
They've allowed at least
Their
21.
defense is, again, comedy charts here. Watch us skyrocket. Their defense is offensive.
Oh, I don't
You get it? It's like a
know.
defense
Got
offense
it.
joke?
I did
got
not
it.
like that. I did not like that.
That's fair.
Opposite of
You were
Kirk
such
Cousins.
a dad.
Hey, I like Kirk Cousins, though.
I do like him. 21 plus fantasy points allowed to Tua and Tannehill for the Chargers so far this season. The most passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns. It's third most. So the Chargers, to your point, have not been good slowing quarterbacks, and Kirk Cousins is the number 1 scoring fantasy quarterback.
You like that?
Yeah, I do like that. Did you know, fun fact, Kirk Cousins has finished as a top 12 fantasy quarterback 7 of the last 8 seasons. He just hangs right on that fringe.
He does.
of
He's the
QB1,
modern
right
day
inside
Phillip
the top
Rivers.
12. He really is.
Yeah.
That's a great call. So
Thank you.
he's off
You like
to-
that one?
I do like that.
Thank you.
I like that. And I like Cousins this week. Good streamer. Should be locked into lineups.
Should be locked into lineups. What about Jordan Addison, Field? Have we reached the point where Addison is considered a lineup lock as a flex player, or are we still kind of sussing out that value with the
I think
rookie?
he is. I mean, you're talking to the biggest fan of Jordan Addison
That's
out
right,
there,
which is
and
why we
obviously
asked.
he scored in back-to-back games. A couple of things. So I'm going to give you both sides of the argument here. It's a great matchup. He's a super
is.
talented player. I think the stock will continue to go up and up and up for Jordan Addison. The only thing that is preventing him from being much higher in my rankings as of right now is that he is still clearly wide receiver 3 in terms of snaps for the Vikings. KJ Osborne's like a 90% playtime player so far. So if KJ Osborne remains in that wide receiver 2 role for the next month and a half, it's going to block the path for Addison to be a weekly must start. If he ever overtakes KJ Osborne and he's playing 85-90% of the snaps, hello, Jordan Addison.
I was fully prepared to be the buzzkill on Addison just to go at you because I know he's your boy, but you did it for me. 11 targets in 2 games so far this season. That number is going to have to go up. He's definitely been lucky with the 2 touchdowns in 2 games, which is great, but is that sustainable? Of course not. He's not going to score a touchdown a game, 17 touchdowns this season, so he's going to have to make up for it with more volume. We haven't seen that yet, so that is why we're ranking a guy that's off to a good start in the 40s or fields a pinch higher.
Yeah, which is tough because he looks so good. This is one of those players where in fantasy, I feel like you get these rookies right early in the season. Guys get excited about them. They get a couple touchdowns under their belt, and you start wanting to think like, hey, I can start this guy every week. This guy's going to be a part of this. You got to look a little deeper into the numbers and understand sometimes they aren't getting used as much as we think they are. Jahan Dotson was kind of one of these guys last year that was really efficient but didn't get as much usage. So just interesting conversation.
I remember, I was going to say his teammate, Justin Jefferson, his first 2 games in the NFL didn't play much and then got the big promotion in week 3 and went on to have he's the best receiver in fantasy.
So social team and digital video team, please clip this. That was 11:24:26 on our clock here. Mike Clay says Jordan Addison will be better than Justin Jefferson. You
gotta
put that on the board or no?
I'm not going to put that on the board, but we're going to save that footage in case
you were listening to my thoughts earlier, right?
Yeah, I absolutely was.
And that's exactly how it works. You know that, right?
I told you we should always do the pod twice. Say our take, and then do another pod saying the opposite takes, and then cut up whatever works.
Wasn't there like some old Twitter account who used to just unleash millions upon millions upon millions of tweets, and then immediately delete them into the cyberspace? But if something proved true, they would just find a way to retweet it into oblivion.
Oh, that sounds smart.
I did that this week. I was like, Kareem Hunt is signed with the Vikings. Kareem Hunt is signed with the Browns. Kareem signed with the Colts. And then I deleted all the others and said, see, I had sources 3 days ago.
Oh, good.
Mike, you're so good at this.
Just nailed it.
Let's dive into the Lions running backs because this one I think is really interesting. We've all wanted to have Jahmyr Gibbs be a guy that just gets a ton of usage because it's easy to see the explosiveness in his game. Super simple. But now there's no David Montgomery. I don't expect Jahmyr Gibbs to get 20 to 25 touches replacing David Montgomery in that role. They don't want to use him like that. Maybe they'll use him more out of the backfield from that perspective. I do expect that target share to be up. But Field, when you're looking at Gibbs, how do you look at him this week?
I project Jahmyr Gibbs to have about 11 carries for 49 yards and 4 catches for 31 yards.
Oh, exactly that. Wow, that's
and 15.87 fantasy points.
That sounds like right on the money.
Like 0.4 touchdown.
That's weird.
No. I just
I
wanted to see if Mike paid attention to his own projections. I really, Mike, you can take this one. And I'll respond to whatever you have to say. I just wanted to get that joke. And again, comedy charts trying
you're
to.
You're just crushing it. Just crushing it. It's
Thank
hilarious.
You very much.
I'm laughing so hard. Jahmyr Gibbs, we saw in last week's game after the injury, split carries 3-3 with Craig Reynolds.
Yep.
I expect something similar. It would not surprise me if Gibbs has the most carries and it's like 12 for him, 10 for Reynolds, or vice versa, something like that. But here's the thing: we're complaining about Gibbs and his workload so far. He is second among running backs in targets and catches so far. He's still getting that volume in the passing game. I expect a major role in that department. That's enough already to be in the RB2 conversation. You take Montgomery out, add more volume to Gibbs, and suddenly he's in the RB1 conversation. Remember, this is an extremely productive, high-volume fantasy backfield.
Yeah.
He can share touches and still be an RB1. I'm all in on Gibbs this week.
So a couple thoughts here. As I agree with everything that Mike just said there in terms of the bottom line for Jahmyr Gibbs. Only questions I have for you is, you have a player that went to your alma mater, this teeny tiny school in Pennsylvania, who plays in the NFL and is going to play a legitimate role this weekend. You have to shine a brighter light on that.
That's a good call. Why didn't I wear my Kutztown?
I don't know. At least be like Craig Reynolds. Well, remember back in the day, Chris Berman, Tom Jackson, whenever there was a player from Louisville who made a play, Chris Berman would say, whatever, Deion Branch, from, and Tom Jackson would go, Louisville. You have to do that with Craig Reynolds. This is your opportunity.
That is true.
That's a good call. I mean, this might be my one and only opportunity. So anyway, Craig Reynolds.
Or maybe you're just not proud of the fact that you went to Kutztown.
I'm super proud. I'm super proud.
Didn't seem like it 2 minutes ago when you just sort of stumbled past the fact that Craig Reynolds.
Look, I'm here to be an objective analyst. All right. Once we're off the air, then I'll celebrate and plug Craig Reynolds into all my lineups.
No one wants objectivity here.
You want to do a Craig Reynolds board bet? What do you got him projected as? 9 fantasy points this week?
I project that Craig Reynolds graduated from Kutztown University. intensity.
All right.
I'll bet you he's going to be under 9 fantasy points this week. I'm going to say
make
that.
fun of my dad jokes.
That's it. No, I don't. I laugh at them
You
usually.
do. You laugh at them.
I try
You're
really
the only
hard to
person
laugh at them.
laughing across the studio. Or you laugh, and then you're like, that was dumb.
And then I'm
You're
like,
like,
wait,
that was
I
bad.
realized how ridiculous that joke was pretty much.
That's the point. I got the laugh. That's what
That's the
matters.
favorite part about FF now on Sunday morning.
Good.
All right, Field Yates, Mike Clay, and Daniel Dopp here on Fantasy Focus Football, and we are making our way through our week through preview. Guys, Brian Robinson has been fantastic to start the season, running back 3 so far. Mike, do you think that type of efficiency, RB3, can continue against a Bills defense?
I do not. You said it. Bills defense. They're very good. They're better against the passing game than they are the running game, but still, they've generally been better than average in slowing opposing running backs. I think he comes back to earth a little bit. Yes, he's 3rd in scoring. He was 1st last week, has 37 carries. Antonio Gibson only has 5 this season, so he's a clear edge there. He is getting more passing down work than we thought in terms of running routes and being on the field, but only 5 targets so far. I'm not sure that's a number that's going to go up substantially. Also, kind of split snaps last week with Antonio Gibson, 36-30. So with the matchup, with that usage, it's enough for me to say still a little bit touchdown dependent. If that falls off, it's going to hurt you. So I think he's more of a borderline RB2 this week, not the RB1 we've seen so far.
I was going to say, Robinson's value has no doubt inflated since the preseason, right? He has like comfortably asserted himself in that low-end RB2 range. It is not nearly as inflated as the numbers would suggest so far, right? But he has been, as Mike has alluded to, more involved in the passing game, and he's an impressive runner. Like, that part was never really a question, whether he'd be impressive when he got his 15 or 20 carries per game. So I am with Mike in terms of my assessment. I have him as RB23 this week.
Kind of feels like it doesn't make a difference, though, if he's an impressive runner or not. They just don't want to give the ball to Antonio Gibson in the running game. Like, is there another running back that you even want to use?
No, I'm talking about Brian
here?
Robinson.
I know.
Yeah, okay,
It
gotcha.
doesn't even make a difference if he looks impressive. Like, Brian Robinson looks like their guy. They just don't want to use Gibson.
They love him. I mean, I mentioned this, I don't know, a week or two ago on the show, right? You've got 2 former players who are overseeing this offense.
Yeah.
Ron Rivera as the head coach, even though he's a defensive guy, and Eric Bieniemy, who was a former player himself and running back. Like, those guys are going to love the fact that Brian Robinson is as tough as you could possibly be. So I'm not surprised at all that their coaching staff, and probably most coaching staffs, would fall in love with Brian Robinson very quickly.
Terry McLaurin is another tough one here for me because Terry McLaurin's so good at football. We've been waiting for him to get a real quarterback. 2 weeks with Sam Howell. 10 targets, 7 catches, 85 receiving yards.
Does he have a real quarterback yet? What do we think?
I don't think
What's
so.
your early feel?
My early feels it's too early.
Yeah, I agree.
How's that?
Yeah.
He's only run 63 routes. That's outside the top 30 at wide receiver. I want him to be on the field. I want him to be targeted more. 10 targets is not enough through 2 games for Terry McLaurin. We drafted him to be a high-end flex play for our team.
Yeah, Carrillo's 16% target share, but it's worse than 10 targets in 2 games, 6 or fewer in 6 straight games, tracing back to last season. The targets have plummeted for McLaurin for some reason. That 3 of those 6 games were with Sam Howell, who has just not targeted him enough.
Who are those targets going to then? If he's got a 16% target share.
Logan Thomas has had a ton. Logan Thomas. You have Jahan Dotson hasn't really performed out of the gate so far. He was getting a whole bunch last season. A little bit of Curtis Samuel, but yeah, not enough production so far. And here's the thing: you talk about the quarterback issues. That's totally fair. He's actually never finished top 20 in fantasy points per game. We keep kind of projecting that next step forward. It hasn't happened for him yet. So in a week like this, I have him ranked 31st. He's going to likely face Tre'Davious White's shadow coverage. He's off to a good start. He's healthy this year. The number 1 corner for the Bills. If you normally rank him 20 to 25, he's going to draw this defense and this coverage. You have to knock him down. I don't think he's a must start this week, and he's almost always a lineup lock. I don't think that's the case this week.
I'm trying to think of the reason why he would be a must start this week. I mean, the only reason why is because he's Terry McLaurin. He's awesome at football, but he's a better football player than fantasy football player, at least at the first, 4+ seasons of his career. That might sound like a negative, but I don't mean it in a negative connotation. He rules as a football player. The guy's making $24 million a year for a reason. But in fantasy, you're looking for players who get a crap ton of volume. That's not going to be him. Pass-happy offense. That's not what this is. And lots of touchdown opportunities. Not this offense yet. I know they scored 35 last week, guys, but it'd been a while since we saw that kind of offense. I think it had been since like 2001 that 2021. That would be a long time if it had been 2001 since they scored 35 points. But yes, not exactly an offense that's going to be lighting up a scoreboard.
I got McLaurin as wide receiver 34. I just don't love this matchup for a guy not seeing the volume that we want against a tough Bills defense. So I'm going to try to go a different direction if I can. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. Mike, are you going to stick with Javonte Williams here?
Yeah. I am. RB17 for me against Miami. Again, off to a slow start this season. I didn't love that he was out snapped by Samaje Perine last week. That concerns me a little bit, but he is dominating the carries. Ran fewer routes than Samaje Perine, but I think his role in the passing game will continue to increase because he's really good in that department. We've seen that throughout his career so far. Miami, by the way, defense off to a disappointing start so far, 5th most fantasy points and 4th most yards and touchdowns to running backs through 2 weeks. All of these defensive snaps, it's only been 2 weeks. We're not getting too carried away. Could be, inflated or deflated by their opponents, but nonetheless off to a slow start. So I think Williams will just continue to get better and better. Was disappointed by last week, though, so he is a little lower in my rankings.
It's funny. I have him the same spot you do in my rankings. We both have him as RB17. My general tenor is less optimistic, though, than yours. I just don't feel like the juice has been there from Javonte Williams. Offensive line has not been good for Denver. Turns out all that money they spent has not turned this offensive line into a dominant unit. So a little bit concerned about Javonte Williams ever eclipsing more than like RB17 or 18 in our weekly rankings. I would have thought coming into the preseason that maybe when he's fully healthy, if he looks like the player we saw pre-injury, you could be having him as a borderline top 10 running back in your weekly rankings. Not sure I foresee that anytime soon this season.
Yeah, I don't know, though. Like, we didn't see this situation the same as we saw with the Jets, where it was like, hey, Samaje Perine might be your early guy like Dalvin Cook would be, and then we see this young running back that's really good, like, come on towards the end of the season. It feels right now, at least, like they want to continue to use Samaje Perine as a part of this offense, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, when I look at this this Broncos offense, getting Jerry Jeudy back last week, I was really excited for my fantasy teams where I drafted him.
Played a lot, too.
He did not look great, but he did play a lot. How much of him not looking great, though, is just as much on Russell Wilson as it is on Jerry Jeudy?
I just want to say this. He played 69% of the snaps. Last year, he was playing like 95. So he did play a lot, but he was clearly limited relative to what he did last season.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, though, of those snaps he played on Sunday, it was like something like 30 out of 36 dropbacks for Russell Wilson. So when they were throwing the ball, Jerry Jeudy was on the field. So that was important. And I expect that number to climb from 69 to 79 or 89 at some point sooner than later as well. So I was worried that last week we'd see him on the field for 20 snaps. Right? Hey, 20 snaps, and he has 3 targets in those 20 snaps, and it's like, this is the ease back in day. No, last week was him playing quite a bit. Big question is just whether you trust this Broncos passing offense.
Trust is a strong word, field right now.
It is. Russell Wilson's been playing pretty well, though, for fantasy so far in this Dolphins defense. If you can protect against them, which I'm not totally confident you can, Eli Apple is a cornerback that you can get some fantasy points off of. That much is for sure.
Yeah, I think he played enough that I feel better starting him this week. So it was a slow start, only 5 targets, 25 yards. But remember, this was a top 25 scoring fantasy receiver last year. Super talented. One sec. He's in a contract year. There's a lot of motivation for Jeudy to have a big season. I think he'll continue to develop into Russell Wilson's top target, which he was late last season. Had a terrific second half of 2022.
Would you take him this week over Cortland Sutton?
Yeah.
You would.
I'm back to Jeudy.
Back on Jeudy over top of Sutton if Jeudy is fully healthy in this Broncos offense. Okay. You love that then. You can't argue with that. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Is there a chance, finally, that Dak Prescott, in spite of the fact that the Cowboys are 2-0 and crushing everybody, scoring so many points, Dak Prescott has not been doing that for us in fantasy because the defense has been doing it?
Maybe.
Do you see him being a top 12, top 10 starter here against the Cardinals?
Here's why I say quarterback 13. So that suggests optimism. He could be a top 12 starting quarterback. The biggest argument against Dak being a quarterback 13 this week is, or being a top 12 quarterback this week is, first play of the game, Josh Dobbs drops back, strip sack Micah Parsons. Cowboys return it for a touchdown, or they return it to the 2-yard line. Tony Pollard punches it in one play later. The Cowboys are so damn good on defense. Obviously, the Trevon Diggs injury stinks to high heavens.
It really does.
They're so good on defense that they'll be fine, especially against Arizona this week. And they could be set up with like legitimately 3 short fields during this game. And Dak, we know this team, they rushed for a ton of touchdowns last season. You know, the offensive line, once Tyler Smith gets healthy and can look a lot like what it was last year, like they can continue to be a ground and pound team. So I don't think Dak has played poorly. I think the opportunities simply haven't been there. So if he plays, I don't know, if they actually play 60 offensive snaps and Dak drops back 30 times this week, I forecast a top 12 quarterback week. but if they run the Cardinals out of the stadium by the end of the first quarter, it might be another week like it has been the past couple.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. I will say this, though. The Cardinals have so far faced Daniel Jones and Sam Howell, and they have allowed the third most fantasy points to quarterback so far. This is not a good defense. Dak is clearly the number one or the best quarterback
in the first half.
Yeah, 20-0 in the first half, and then it all fell apart. They were exposed. So, no top 15 weeks so far for Dak, but he had the 40-0 shutout, to your point about, the defense kind of carrying the load. But he did have almost 20 fantasy points against the Jets last week, one of the league's best defenses. So I feel optimistic. Again, I'm right there with you at 13. He's definitely a streaming option.
I still feel it's hard for me not to. I understand what you're saying, Mike. It's hard for me not to feel like the narrative that Field is laying out, though, is more of what's going to happen this week, where this Cowboys defense is so dominant that if they get up early, the idea that Dak, in spite of the fact that these quarterbacks have been top 10 recently, it's just like that. It feels like it's going to play out this way. It really does. So that's a tough one for me.
You still, if you're going to beat a team 31-7, though, you have to score them points somehow. And the D maybe scores
Tony
one,
Pollard.
but I know, but maybe he throws two. I think if you're just projecting this objectively, he looks like a fringe QB. Remember, by the way, one of the negatives, though, with him is he doesn't really run anymore, too. That kind of holds him back. Only 20 rushing yards this season, whereas like someone like Russell Wilson, who we didn't really get into, he's on pace for almost 500 rushing yards this season. He's kind of added that to his arsenal, which gives him some upside. But that's why Prescott, even in what we perceive as a good matchup, is 13th and not 7th or 6th or 5th like he would have been 5 years ago. So
then outside of those two guys, like you're saying we're definitely starting Tony Pollard. We're definitely starting CeeDee Lamb in this offense. Yeah. Brandon Cooks is an iffy guy for you based on how
Probably
this
not
works?
this week.
Probably not this week? Okay. So it's really just those two guys, and then you can look at Dak if you need him.
Yeah, or, we have 1,000 borderline tight end ones. If you want to throw Ferguson in there, you can do that. That's about it, though.
We've been waiting for Jake Ferguson to be able to hit. That would be nice.
Yeah,
because we need something at the tight end position, guys.
Yeah, again, we're still looking to commission some art here for the studio. Currently, the list is about 7 players.
All right.
Startable of tight ends, you have to start.
Yep. Oh, is it 7?
I don't know.
Have 7?
Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Waller,
Laporta. Sorry,
Kittle.
Is that the end of
Goddard.
The list? Oh, Goddard. Yeah, he's off to a poor start.
I know, but still playing him.
Yeah, you're starting Goddard, but after that, then you get to Freiermuth and Njoku, Ingram. They've all been poor.
Kyle Pitts is way on.
Poor. I think that's it. I think it's 6 we said.
Here's a fun fact:
is Hunter Henry a must start now?
Who's the only player this season who has a top 2 finish in each of the first 2 weeks at his position?
Top 2 finish.
Not Kirk Cousins.
Right.
I don't know. Who is it?
I think Hunter Henry.
Oh, is it really? Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, look how dismissive you were on Hunter Henry.
I still say no to that one.
Wow.
I know. But yeah,
so many snaps.
They are pass catcher by committee there. He's a good football player, obviously, but playing this Jets defense this weekend and what could be a very rainy Sunday. That's a big storyline for this week, by the way.
It is.
Watch the weather in the Northeast specifically. Going to get some rain.
Yep.
It sounds
Northeast, like Cleveland, Cincinnati.
I knew you were going to say
Detroit, that area too.
Mike is like, all right, so the Chiefs game could be underwater, maybe the Seahawks, right?
Out west in Kansas City.
Yeah, Mike is like, well, relative to Australia, we are Northeast.
That's correct.
Or we could be if you go the other way,
Look,
right?
You're getting it now, okay?
Yeah.
Let's talk about these Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Do you guys mind? They're taking on Mike's Philadelphia
Let's
Eagles.
go. Monday night.
Guys, who's the best quarterback in this game, Mike?
Let's see. Who are the backups? Gardner Minshew's not around anymore.
No, he's not.
Mariota, yeah.
Marcus Mariota. No, who was drafted the earliest? Marcus Mariota. No, Baker.
Baker was after the earliest.
So much draft pedigree quarterback this week. Wow.
Yeah.
2 first-rounders?
No, I kid, obviously. I kid. This is more to say that, obviously impressed by the start so far from Baker Mayfield. He deserves a ton of kudos for this Bucs team. But I think the bigger question mark is you've got a running back in Rachaad White who's had 2 games with different outcomes, but he's so damn busy. I mean, the guy is the clear-cut guy in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers backfield, and all of a sudden Chase Edmonds is now on IR. Have they made a corresponding move to add a running back to the 53-man roster?
No, I don't think so. Not yet. So they have Sean
Tucker.
It's going to be it's going to be Sean Tucker and Rachaad White. But yeah, White's 5th in touches.
He is,
in the
but
NFL
does the matchup scare you enough that you feel bad? And this is a good part here. Like I actually was thinking about this last night in prep for the show. Is that we are so concerned about things like must start versus sit. Like this is a category that I'd be curious if the viewers find it helpful or not. I think it is helpful. it's downgrade / manage expectations. That would be the category that Rachaad White fits into this week, akin to what we discussed with Brian Robinson earlier in the show.
Yeah, it depends on your other options, and you could apply this to DFS. Maybe it's a week to stay away in a cash lineup. White, it's interesting, especially early in the season, how this works. Like Rachaad White, really high coming into the season. Had a down week 1. I ranked him even higher in week 2 because of the volume. He had
you were all over it.
He had a good week 2, and now I'm lower on him after the good week against Philadelphia.
He's about to slide into your DMs so hard again.
He is. He's coming for me this week. Eagles so far 82 rushing yards allowed, 0 touchdowns to running backs. And they faced New England. That's Ramondre's good. And then they faced Minnesota. And that's another thing about, like, we're not going to get into Alex Madison today. We've talked about him already. But, he's played Tampa Bay and he's played Philadelphia. Maybe it's just been a matchup thing because his volume's been good too. So
I think it's an offensive line thing.
It's definitely related because they've had so many
Patriots
injuries there.
I think the Vikings and Patriots were both down like at least 3 starters against the Eagles, which have a great defensive front, by the way. So I wonder if Tampa, who has an offense, I think a solid offensive line. I wouldn't say it's as good as it was a couple of seasons ago, but I mean, there's some players that are out. Tristan Wirfs is a freaking stud. Just like, I'm gonna go play left tackle and be like all pro level good. Anyways, I think it's an offensive line thing more so than just the running backs involved. That's one of my takeaways from the early portions of the season. You got to have an offensive line to help you out a little bit.
That does help quite a bit.
It does, yeah. Turns out it does.
Do you have your rankings pulled up right now, Field? I want to ask you guys some questions.
Okay, I will pull them up right now.
You're gonna have to probably go off the cuff because I know you don't have your computer in front of you.
Let's do it.
But when you're looking at this guy, I think Rachaad White is a really interesting conversation because if you drafted him, you probably waited as like a 0 RB or second, like hero RB running back, someone that you waited on a little bit longer.
Yeah,
a lot of times, or maybe he's just your 3rd or 4th running back because you grabbed him in the 7th, 8th, or 9th
That's
round.
why he was going in the summer in like the 7th, and then he started to generate some hype. Ended up in like the 5th round.
Mike talked about him on Instagram and generated
That's what it was.
One time.
All right, so then this week, because he is getting so much volume, and that's the hard part for me, benching a guy that is obviously getting the workload, right?
Okay, hit me.
Here in week 3, would you rather have him or would you rather have Jerome Ford against the Titans?
I've got Jerome Ford
higher.
ranked higher, yes.
Okay. Would you rather have him or would you rather have Zach Moss, a guy that you would have grabbed off waivers against Baltimore?
I don't want to spoil too much, but I've got Zach Moss ranked higher as well.
Yeah, I believe I do as well.
Would you rather have Rachaad White or would you rather have Joshua Kelly playing Minnesota, potentially filling in for Austin?
Talk about that.
Rachaad White. We have to
I'm going Kelly on
this
that one.
week. Yeah.
We'll get to that.
That's a nice pick.
So that's
to lose.
you're looking at potentially playing some guys over Rachaad White you would have grabbed off of waivers, or maybe you were using as a potential streamer rather than someone because of the tough matchup here, which I think is tough. But I still like Rachaad White here. He's still going to get a lot of volume. Hopefully he gets some passing game work too.
Yeah. All right. Do our board bet right now?
Let's do it.
Okay. So was my statement he'd be outside my top 30? I've got him at 27. So if that's too low.
Do you know where I have him?
Right now, Rachaad White?
Probably like
Josh Kelly, you have
Kelly,
15.
like 17.
You have Josh
15, because you are delirious.
All right, so
I've got him at 27.
I've got him at 30. You've got him at 15?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Why not?
You didn't watch the game last week, right? Yeah.
Who'd they play last week? The Titans, who you were just worried about, have been the most dominant run defense in the league.
You know what, though? You know what? You're right. Let's just board bet so I can beat you anyways.
Okay.
Done. 15 for you, 27 for me. Split the difference at 21?
Sure. Let's do it. Close enough.
If you finish is exactly RB21,
I win.
No, Daniel wins. How about that?
Daniel wins.
Daniel wins. Daniel gets a bonus board bet.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Though with his luck this year, he's going to win it too.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
What do you mean luck?
I'm sure. Total luck.
Oh, okay.
It's all variance. Yeah. All right.
I say Joshua Kelly is not a top 21 running back in week 3.
I say Joshua Kelly is a top 21 fantasy running back in week number 3.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board.
All right. There you go. Another win for me. Yeah, sure.
I've got Joshua Kelly at running back 30. I say he will not be a top 28 running back this year. Will you do 2 board bets on Joshua Kelly?
This week?
On this week, yeah. He will not be top 28.
It gives like a very narrow range of
27 to 30. I just wanted a second
do I only
board
get
bet.
like 21 to 27? Is that what you're saying? Or do I get...
I think he needs to be top 28 and a half in order for you to be able to win.
All right, next
Right,
topic.
but like if let's just say he's 15. If he is 15,
then you win.
I win and Mike wins.
And Mike wins. So you sort of split. It's sort of like victory
I know,
points
that is
for
a
you.
great hedge right there by me.
That really
Anyways,
is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Steelers because this is something.
Can we just quickly close a circle on this last game and just mention the Eagles' backfield? Sure. Because if Kenneth Gainwell plays, which it sounds like he's expected to on Monday night, do we have ourselves a grand old mess once again? My feeling would be to fade the Eagles' backfield if Kenneth Gainwell is available, and here's the reason why. I think coming into week 1, it was clear Gainwell was going to be the starter with a minimal role for DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift played well enough in week 2 that it's like, okay, his role can't be that small.
175 yards.
That being said, Kenneth Gainwell had played well enough during the preseason and in week 1 that Philly's like, all right, he's our guy. So I think this ends up being much more of a 2-man split in the backfield than a 3 or 4-man split. But that 2-man split means that neither one of those guys is a must start.
And a real possibility that Jalen Hurts scores from the goal line, and a real possibility that Rashad Penny is active and gets at least a couple touches. Boston Scott has a concussion, probably not going to play in this game. So I think Penny will be active. But yeah, you could see all 3 of those guys on the field. I'm with you. I think if they're both active, we're not playing any of them. If Gainwell sits again, which would be a surprise at this point, then obviously we're going back to Swift.
I think if when ESPN bet is available, our new sports book, we should be able to bet whether a player will score on a tush push.
Ooh, I like the tush push.
Yeah. I kind of want. There was one last night. Was it Purdy? I think did it, or was it Jones? Maybe it was Jones. Yeah. And it almost did not work. Right. And I was like, I want that. Like, as an Eagles fan, I want it to not work because they're going to outlaw it if everyone's just doing it and it's automatic. If it's like 100%.
Oh, it's automatic so far.
Feels
automatic. I know, but I want it to not be. I just want it to be an Eagles thing. So,
okay. Gotcha.
So they don't outlaw it. If it just, again, if it's one of them things that's like automatic, they're going to get rid of it at some point.
If you were in a deep league, just to pay off some of like our 16-teamers, we talk about the War Room League, and you have to start one of these running backs, are you going with
that's a tough
DeAndre
call.
Swift or Kenneth Gainwell? I realize we're splitting hairs here.
You know, I have.
Is that what it is? You're at a coin flip.
For me. Yeah, that's where it is.
It really is. I have Gainwell one spot ahead for the reason you laid out, which is he won the job, but he's not 100% right now, so I'd have no issue.
And who's a better player? Who's a better football player?
I think Swift is. The Eagles disagree, but I think it's Swift.
Well, after last week, they might not disagree.
That's a good point.
So that's usually the way that that tends to be a reasonable tiebreaker. Is if you think the number of touches could be similar, who's the more explosive player? DeAndre Swift. But coin flip.
I'll tell
coin
you
flip.
You need help with that coin flip field? You can go to trophysmack.com. They got a start sit coin that you can flip to be able to figure out what you need to do for your fantasy lineup.
That is awesome. You know what?
We need to get that for the show.
There was a coin that someone gave my wife and I when we had our first child, and it was supposed to be like you flip it to see if it like lands. It's like whichever side it lands on, mom or dad, changes the next diaper. Oh, no. And I'm pretty sure someone gave us a coin where it said like one side was like dad's turn, the other side was not mom's turn.
Yes,
and so I'm the dummy. It took me like 3 weeks to figure that out. I was like, Mike tells me that regression to the mean's supposed to take place. Why am I changing every diaper?
Oh, it's so good.
I love it. All right, now we're going to talk about the Steelers.
All right,
that's okay. I don't know what to do here.
I like you ask if it's okay.
Well, because I've tried a couple times. I've tried it.
You're
and
so generous.
I just want to be nice. We all want to be good to each other.
I know.
I've been so frustrated as a Najee Harris manager. The first 2 weeks have been awful, especially watching Jaylen Warren, who, of course, we did have buzz about in draft season. Watch him be so good here in week 2, guys. So help me figure out, when I'm looking at these Steelers running backs, are we in a true committee at this point where we're looking at a work split between Najee and Jaylen Warren?
Well, first of all, I'll say this. Real 2022 Cowboys vibes here.
Interesting.
Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott type of a
definitely gives me vibes, especially watching. And by the way, Harris, it's a very small sample, but he's averaging like 5 yards per carry. Again, small sample, but he's running it okay. I think one of it was that
4.6,
that big run. But if you watch the game, and including Monday night, one of them just looks better and more explosive than the other. And that was the same vibes we've had with the Cowboys.
Yeah, the guy
Tony
that was
Pollard
taken in the 8th round.
Yes.
The undrafted guy, not the first round pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
He just looks like the better player. So, so far, the Steelers seem to agree that Harris is no longer a feature back. 62 snaps for Harris to 47 for
crazy.
Warren.
It's
Harris
crazy.
has 16 to 9 edge and carries. Touches, though, 19 to 18. It's basically an even split. In fact, Warren is second on the Steelers in targets so far. Neither scored a touchdown so far because they've been kind of struggling out of the gate. I do have Harris ranked a couple spots higher, but it's 3 spots, a 3-spot gap. That is
crazy.
As close as it's been since the start of last season when Warren joined the team. So yeah, real concerns here about Harris's upside.
Najee Harris has 713 career touches. What do you think his longest play from scrimmage is?
In his career? Oh my goodness. 22 yards. I don't know.
I'm going to say 75 just to make it fun.
37.
Well, that's gross.
0 40-yard runs in his career. 0 receptions longer than 25 yards in his career.
Wow.
Volume, baby. Volume.
It's just
and the volume is no longer dominant.
And
so
it's
how
not
can
there.
you call Najee Harris a dominant football player? I remember this. Well, never mind. It's just.
It's,
Gosh,
I mean, it has 2022 Cowboys vibes. Harris is a little bit of a Trent Richardson vibe there,
by the
too.
way, by the way, in college, when he averaged 6 yards per carry, his longest career run, 53.
Wow.
That's pretty crazy. So, yeah, I just don't think that gear is there for Najee. He's a capable player, no doubt, but for fantasy purposes, his value has dropped about as much as anybody's so far in those first 15 or so running backs drafted.
Yeah, he's just a reliable, basically an innings eater at this point. That's kind of the role he plays.
Nice.
Innings
You know what,
eater.
Mike? I'm so glad that you know what that means.
Good
yeah.
middle reliever. I
Do you
used
know
to
what
watch baseball.
sport? Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you
did
know what
used to watch
innings
baseball.
eater references?
It's a highlight
Yeah.
reference.
It's been a
is
long
what it
time.
is.
It's been a long time, but I used to watch the baseballs. Yeah, but I mean that's just what it feels like right now. He's not gonna go away. He's one of 2 fantasy relevant running backs, really one that's a starter currently that has not missed a game the last 2 seasons. He's played in all
Devin Singletary.
34. That's right, Devin Singletary.
I listen to you. I listen to Mike when he says
Okay,
this.
okay,
That's
that's it. Are we at the point now, Mike Clay, where after what George Pickens, and we all knew he was going to do it against the 49ers.
Did we?
Well, some of us did. After we saw that performance, is George Pickens now without Deontay Johnson in the lineup, a lineup lock here this
Yeah,
week?
he is. And by the way, that board bet was looking great for me until he caught that 60-some yard touchdown.
Yeah.
We were like, that's what he said. It's going to take one touchdown,
and that was it.
to do it. And it did. Of course, 4 for 127 and a score in that game. Career high 10 targets. He's played almost 90% of the snaps this season. That was a trend late last season as well. And just dominating the targets. So he has 5 more than Jaylen Warren, who I just mentioned, second on the team. Also tracing back to last season, a touchdown in 3 of his last 5 games. So
Love that.
He's definitely trending toward that breakout. Not top 20 for me just yet, but with Johnson out, he should be locked in.
Yeah.
There's been some debate in the past on this show and other platforms about who the best athlete in the history of the Brooks School is. My wife Chapin and Pat Fryermuth, the 2 top contenders.
Well,
With just 2 catches in the first 2 weeks of the season,
I think the answer is,
might be
is
Chapin.
there.
Chapin
We have the
pretty
answer.
clearly the top athlete. So he's a good football player, man. I don't know why he has had such a low target share so far this season.
How many yards does he have?
I think it's 6.
5, yeah.
Okay.
2
Yeah.
5
2 for
targets.
5 with the touchdown.
2 for 5 with the touchdown. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and I'm not. We have only a little bit of time left, so it doesn't have to be a long conversation. General thoughts here. How do you feel about Kenny Pickett? And I'm not trying to dunk on you like, yeah, you were optimistic on him. I'm legitimately
too early,
curious.
yeah.
Like, do you think it's just too small of a sample size, or have there been any encouraging signs? It's been way different than what I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, they have faced what might be 2 top 5 defenses so far in the 49ers and the Browns. So
fair.
I will.
That's totally fair.
I want to see what he does against the Raiders this week. This is a good matchup for this whole offense. We know the Raiders have many defensive problems. If he really struggles in this game or they get upset traveling, I mean, they are traveling out west. It's never easy, but I'll panic a little bit after this game. I still think there's some hope there. Not as good as I hoped. I thought they'd be a little better, but week 1 just got away from them right away. Game plan was gone.
It's amazing how we're talking about the Steelers, and it's like their first round pick this year. Broderick Jones has played 4 snaps. The first round pick last year, Kenny Pickett has struggled. The first round pick the year before that, Najee Harris, is basically a timeshare back, and
with
they're
an undrafted free agent.
They're 1-1, and like I mean, this team, it's the Mike Tomlin thing. Man.
One more note on Fryermuth, though. I will say this. 4th in the NFL in end zone targets. He is 3, so maybe some hope there. If the targets go back up, which we would expect. I mean, his target share is super low, but at least he's getting work near the goal line. That's
to be clear,
something
the
to hold on
headline here, Chapin's still the GOAT of
to.
Brooks.
Sure, yeah. He has to convert on them first. She would have caught at least, well, he scored 1. She would have caught at least 2.
So
of those
my
end zone targets.
20-month-old does not have great hands so far.
Not yet.
But so what we've been able to find and playing a little catch with her, Chapin has great hands though. But Kinley, the throw a ball her way,
Tough.
she's more of a
get there.
redirector.
Maybe a defensive back.
Yeah, she could be a deep back. That's
Yes,
right.
that's what we're looking at.
That's it. That's the one.
All right, here on Fantasy Focus Football, Field Yates, Mike Clay, and Daniel Dopp with the last little bit. Our starts of the week here in Week 3, wrapping up our Week 3 preview. Field, give us our starts of the week. And when we talk about this, it's not obvious must starts.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd say Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yes.
We're talking about guys that are flex plays that are maybe farther down your list, someone you could try this week if you needed someone that wasn't obvious.
Yeah, so Jake Browning's my pick for this week.
Stop.
In your super
breaking
flex
some
league,
notes? Yeah.
3 quarterbacks.
Yes, 3 quarterback league.
We'll have a big show on Monday. We do touch on Monday Night Football always on Monday, probably give it a bit more heft because there are 2 games and some serious question marks, including Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Watch fantasy football now on Sunday morning. My answer is Zach Moss, though, Colts running back, who last week played all but, 1 or 2 snaps, Mike? 1?
Yeah, I think all but one.
All but 1 snap for the Colts, which is an unusual workload for any player. We saw the 49ers kind of take away some of CMC's snaps last night because you can't keep doing that often. That being said, the Colts backfield does not have the depth that the 49ers backfield has. Moss impressed, and I know Mike and I talked about this on Wednesday. If you missed it, here's your chance to hear it. If you heard it, sorry for repeating it, but Zach Moss is no scrub. 3rd-round pick, guy would like coming out of college, out of Utah. So good opportunity here for him in a game for the Colts that without Anthony Richardson probably increases the odds of him getting goal line / red zone work just a little bit.
Would you say he's good enough now that you'll spell his name right in emails?
Wow. That was very funny.
Okay.
Does
he earn that level of respect?
You know what?
Now?
Let's do this right now. How do you spell Zach Moss's last name? Past the Z.
Past the Z?
Sorry. Yeah, just spell Zach Moss. Zach what? Z-A what?
Z-A-C-K.
Okay. How about Zach Efron?
Z-A-C.
How about Zach Wilson?
Z-A-C-H.
How about
Zach Morris.
I don't know. The point is that it's hard.
There's
like 9 different. There's like, well, I guess there's 3, but there's 3 different spellings of the same name.
Could be Z-A-K. There could be a Zach
That's
out
right.
there
That's a
like
good
that.
one.
Like
Yeah, there's a Zach. Our buddy Zach Kiefer does a great job
That's
covering
it.
for the
That's what
Athletics
it
with
is.
Z-A-K. So here's the bottom line. By the way,
Some of us take our job seriously. That's all.
really
We
what
just
it
care
is.
about these
Anthony
guys.
Richardson, by the way, not practicing again today, so it'll be
great.
Gardner Minshew. Yeah.
Thanks, Field. Mike, what about you? Who's your start of the week for this week?
Mine is Nico Collins, N-I-C-O. Collins.
Collins?
Wow, can't even spell
Nailed
Collins.
it. No, I don't know how to spell Collins.
K-A-W-L-I-N-Z. Collins.
Nico
has been
Collins.
dope the first 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Field, or Mike.
tight end 6 so far, paired top 25s, top 10 in targets, catches, yards, and air yards. They're getting the ball vertically downfield.
Yes,
They're
they
running
are.
a ton of offensive plays. Those will come down a little bit, but if he keeps up with this volume, he's going to be fine. Since returning from injury in Week 10 last season, he's averaging 9.3 targets per game. He's been the centerpiece of this offense, regardless of the quarterback. Jacksonville's allowed 2 big fantasy games to receivers so far. Pittman and Sky Moore both had at least 16 points. I think Collins has a chance to be the 3rd in a row.
I love that
Lock
call.
him in.
And I'm going to go with Michael Thomas as my start of the week. Guy has gotten volume the first 2 weeks. 7 targets in week 1, 9 targets in week 2, at least double-digit fantasy points through week 1 and week 2. He is looked at by Derek Carr in this offense. Like him as a flex play that you could utilize here in week 3. So really like Michael Thomas, someone that you can utilize and not have to feel bad about in your fantasy lineup.
I'm with you. 5+ catches in every game since the start of last season. All of them.
love that.
100%. How many games is that?
That's 100% of the games.
Yeah, 100%.
I think
thought
is the
for
way to
some
say
reason.
that.
I thought in our league that I'm playing against Mike that I have Nico Collins and he was trying to reverse jinx me.
You're talking about the show league where Mike's 0-4? Or the different league?
Slow start for Mike. He'll be okay.
That's how bad my team is. I'm 0-4 through 2 weeks. It doesn't feel good.
If anybody in my veterans league wants to trade me a single healthy running back, that would be great. I have a kicker to offer you. So if you want to trade me a running back, please. I got the business handed to me by Matt Neese last week. He grinded it out because, Pat Frymouth had a bagel on Monday night.
Yeah, that makes it tough.
I needed 7
sometimes.
points. I got 0.
What
I lost by 1 point in that league.
Did you in the Veterans League?
No, in the Focus League.
Oh, in the
last
Focus
week. I
League,
lost
okay.
by 1 point in multiple leagues. Our Dynasty League as well. I need Christian Watson back.
How come you just don't set
I was
better
going to say,
lineups?
Matthew, that's so
I don't
weird
know.
that you bring
Yeah,
that
that's
up right
tough,
now.
huh?
Yeah, I lost. So,
I am playing Matthew this week, actually.
Oh, wow. Second highest scoring team of the week.
Yeah, second high.
and-
This guy had the gall to start Christian McCaffrey.
He did start him against me. I couldn't believe it.
And he also started, Puka Nakua. Like, who gets that guy off waiver wires?
Gosh.
Embarrassing.
Just
I have
get
him.
better.
I have him in the Dynasty League.
I love it.
There you go.
Just get better.
Do you?
All right.
Yeah.
Did you draft him or no?
I think it was a late round flyer in our rookie draft.
You are so smart. It bothers me how smart you guys are.
Thanks, man.
I really regret being in a dynasty league with Mike Clay. I'm not going
too.
to lie about
Yeah.
that. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Shout out to all you on E2. Thank you for coming in and hanging out. We love you guys so much. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. We will see you on Sunday morning. FF Now. See you later. Good
Talk
luck
to you on
in week 3.
Monday. Sunday. Both. Maybe tomorrow.
We'll see you Sunday and Monday.
I'll do
You know what?
Instagram
I'll see
Live.
you tomorrow too. Why not?
Say every day.
College football. Buffalo plays? I don't know. We get a Deion Sanders game.
You mean Colorado? They play